Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Episode 117 of the Last Round Podcast. Thanks again, guys, for joining us, whether you're listening on any podcast platform, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Amazon, which is a brand new one that we recently got on, Boxing Socials, YouTube, wherever you're at, however you're listening. We appreciate it. Just jumping right into it, from this past Saturday, the 13th of February, from the Wembley Arena in London on DAZN. Mike, this was a big surprise, I think, to a lot of people. Josh Warrington suffers right? Why did I think that he lost? He did lose, right?
Oh, I'll put it on the wrong side. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because like in the notes for this episode, you kind of confused me. I was like, wait a minute. Did I read? I was like, why did I see all this news that he lost? And I was just like, what the hell? So Josh Warrington suffers the first professional loss of his career as he gets stopped in the ninth, or the fight gets stopped in the ninth round against big underdog. If anybody betted on this fight and they put their money on Lara, they obviously made some pretty good returns on this. Warrington was down in twice, once in the fourth round and obviously in the ninth round. I mean, I think you can hear it in my voice. The surprise feeling that I have. I mean, what'd you think were you watching this fight live, Mike? I mean, and if you were, what'd you think about it as it was going on? And obviously, what'd you think about the result?
Yeah, I was at work, and then I managed to get DAZN on my phone, quickly pulled it out, caught this fight, and actually caught the Zelpa Barrett fight as well. Just a strange old week for him, really. Obviously, he gave up his, vacated the IBF featherweight title because they were trying to force him to fight Kid Galahad, because the Kanzu fight had obviously been postponed because they were trying to get fans in for that fight. He kind of takes Mauricio Lara as a tune-up, right? Kind of keep him busy because he'd been out of the ring for so long. Just came in unstuck. I think it was just one of those fights where Josh Warrington tried to stand and trade with him, where he really should have kind of, boxed, Lara more from the outside. And as soon as, early on when Lara, he absolutely loves the left hook, which is in there. Once he started connecting with those left hooks, you could kind of see that, he was heavy-handed and it was taking its toll on Josh Warrington, but he just didn't change up his game plan. I didn't think the corner was great that day. They didn't really come back with a different game plan. Obviously, he got knocked down really badly in the fourth. Should have really have been waved off. Obviously, Howard Foster's come in for a lot of stick because of that. But I also think that, his corner should as well. I know Howard Foster is the referee. He should, protect both fighters, make sure it's a fair fight. But at the same time, why didn't his dad throw the towel in? He gets back to the corner, glazed eyes, his legs are completely gone. He comes out, takes, another, 4 or 5 rounds of punishment, and then gets knocked down twice in the ninth, and that final stoppage was pretty bad as well. Gets taken to the hospital. Just punishment he didn't need. There was no IBF title on the line.
Because he vacated it.
You could see he was gone. Howard Foster pretty much dragged him back to the corner and put him on his stool. That's how badly he was out. So I thought it was a bad performance by Howard Foster. I know there's always that case where, he's, even though he wasn't the IBF champion, he was still, the big dog in the fight. And Howard Foster was probably kind of thinking, fuck, if I wave this off, this is going to be a little bit, awkward, because he's the A side. And this other guy wasn't even the B side. He was more like a D side because he came in, as such an underdog. But at the end of the day, when he stood there, and obviously they do that new thing where they're like, hey, walk to the left, walk to the right as a referee. And he couldn't even do that. He should have just waved it off.
Do you think this was more of that Josh Warrington looked bad and coming back after obviously a long layoff during a pandemic? Or do you think Mauricio Lara was just probably better than he thought and actually has talent? I mean, obviously he has talent. Any fighter who gets to that level, the professional ranks is obviously good enough to make it, to fight. But I mean, do you think this was more? Did Josh Warrington lose that fight, or did Lara win that fight?
It's a good question. I'd have to see more of Lara because in his previous fights, I don't know whether it was just because he was fighting.
Well, if you just had to judge it just based on that fight, I know we can use. I'm not gonna let you take that easy way out saying have to see more of Lara. Just based on the judgment of this individual fight, what would you say?
I think Lara was better than we thought, but I think at the same time, I think Josh Warrington came in and thought he could stand and trade because Josh doesn't have a great defense, but normally he kind of has that kind of, he comes in kind of low, kind of protects himself and just kind of throws. He was kind of very flat-footed and had his chin kind of like slightly high up. His defense wasn't as great as it normally was. He's never been a huge like mover. He didn't kind of like zip in and out of the pocket. But at the same time, Lara, he did box a little bit more than he did in his previous fights, where his other fights, I don't even think he threw a jab. He used to just throw like left hook, like all the time because he was just trying to get people out of there. So he did box a little bit better, but I think kind of a combination of both. Lara did come in, seem better, but at the same time, Josh just came with the wrong game plan. I don't know whether he started like very high in weight because he just had, as soon as he was getting hit, his legs just went. He had nothing. I don't know whether he came in heavy, had a really bad weight cut because of the 17-month layoff or whatever it was. I know it was a huge layoff.
Right.
Maybe he came in at a very high weight, and just he had to zap himself down, took all the water out, and he didn't hydrate well enough because, Lara is a hard puncher, but his legs were totally gone, like jelly.
Yeah, I think after that first knockdown in the fourth round, I think that's when it was over for Warrington. And I think he knew it. Fair play to him. You keep going, and he keeps going. And when we've seen other fighters just give up, and they're just like, you know what, I know I can't keep going. I'll give up on the store or whatever. But I think that fight was essentially over after that first knockdown. Like mentally for Warrington, I think he knew that, and I think he felt that. Because from some of the highlights that I saw, that's how I understood it. Just based on like you said, his legs were gone. And then following that fourth round, I was like, dang, you know what? Like he really lost that fight. I think to an extent, mentally, maybe, he lost himself after that fourth round. And Lara, like you said, he's got like, I don't think anybody expected him to have that, secret power like that, or, obviously if you've watched his fights before, maybe there's fans out there or listeners who are listening right now who said, no, I've seen some of his fights before on YouTube or on this card, and the kid's got power. He's just not known. Maybe. And we're, I'm willing to admit that, it's difficult to keep up with so many fighters that we have in this sport on a global basis, but yeah, I think Warrington, especially after that first knockdown, the fourth round, I think mentally he was done, and it was the beginning of the end following that fourth round.
I think the fact that Howard Webb and the corner let him go on, mentally it's worse because he's now taken, I think he lost pretty much every single round. He's now taken 9 rounds of abuse, which mentally he now has to come back from. Whereas in the fourth round, if Howard Foster or his corner had stopped it, Josh could always convince himself, hey, I would have come back from that. It's Howard Foster's fault. Like kind of like Deontay Wilder's doing now, blaming everybody else for his loss instead of looking at himself. It's kind of the same thing for Josh Warrington. He could have said, oh, Howard Foster stopped it too early. I would have come back. I was really fit. My legs would have been okay after the minute's rest in between rounds. Whereas now he's just got to know that he got knocked out in the fourth, and then he just took beating after beating after beating, and then just got knocked the F out in the ninth. So it's just mentally that's going to be harder to come back from.
Are we going to see a rematch?
Yeah, I think so. I think Eddie Hearn's already said that, that they had a rematch clause, even though it was a tune-up. Eddie was, clever enough, I guess, to stick a rematch clause in there. And he also has options on Mauricio Lara. So I think Warrington may take the rematch just to right the wrong. Or maybe he might just be like, you know what, that was a one-off, and just go on to bigger and better things. He's already 30 years old. He's out the ring for 14 months, 17 months, whatever it was. So maybe he's just like, you know what, that was just a flash in the pan. I had a bad night. He had a really, really good night. Let's just call it what it is and let's just move on to something else.
Do you think that's smart for somebody like Eddie Hearn or in general a boxing promoter to always put a rematch clause into fights like this when the opponent is technically what you call, quote unquote, a tune-up or a comeback fight? You know, is it always smart for the promoter who's negotiated the contracts to add a rematch clause because it gives you that safety net? Because stuff like this could happen. It's boxing, you know, like it could happen. Do you think it's always smart to always have it in there 100%?
Yeah, I think you answered your own question, really. Yeah, because if he'd have kept the IBF title and Lara had come in and shocked him and won it, and it didn't have a rematch clause in it, Lara would have been singing all the way to the bank because he'd have wanted a rematch, and then Eddie Hearn would have had to have paid him a substantially more, a bigger amount of money.
Right.
And we would have laughed at him. You know, I know people are giving him kind of shit for having the rematch clause in, but we'd also be giving him shit if he didn't.
Right. No, you're right. Yeah, and I mean, like, who knows if that rematch clause in that contract has an allotted, purse for each fighter or for Lara. But if it doesn't, if it just says rematch clause, you know, we have the right to have a rematch clause or what have you. I'm sure Lara is gonna tell Eddie Hearn, like, hey, you know, like we're gonna have a rematch, but you need to pay me more, you know. So I'm sure Lara is gonna make a little bit more money this time, especially as he's coming in. I mean, would you call him, at least from the victory perspective, would you call him the A side in the rematch, even though Warrington's the bigger name still?
No, I wouldn't call him the A side. Obviously, he kind of holds the cards as such. But, you know, Warrington still brings the eyes to the fight. You know, Warrington would bring the fans to the fight if there is any going to be. You know, because I heard a recent interview with Bob Arum that says, as far as he knows, we're going to start seeing fans and media return to Vegas in May, and also MSG in New York.
That'd be pretty sweet, man. I think we've been talking about that for a long time, that we need to get back to fights, you know, go and be there ringside. It's, you know, we need to scratch that itch. This fight, the Warrington fight, kind of reminded me of the Andrew Cancio fight when he fought was a Puerto Rican.
Machado,
Alberto Machado, who was training with Freddie Roach. It was the same thing. Cancio, like, from what we've seen, you know, obviously he was coming up here in the LA area with Golden Boy. I think Cancio was a little bit better opponent than, for example, than we thought Lara was, at least before the fight. But people still picked Machado, like, oh, Machado's a bigger guy, you know. So when Cancio won, it was like, what the hell? And they had a rematch, and Cancio beat him again. So, like, can you see this? Do you think this is kind of like a deja vu in terms of Warrington and Lara? In the rematch, can you see Lara beating him again? Or do you think this was a fluke and Warrington comes back and is victorious in the rematch?
That's a good question. I would say Warrington, but he would definitely have to, you know, kind of hit and move a little bit more than he did the first time, because, you know, physically Lara, you know, was bigger, had the bigger reach, was more powerful, obviously had more pop than maybe, you know, Warrington expected, because of, you know, obviously Lara had a very limited resume against, you know, opponents, you know, over in Mexico. So it could be one of those, you know, clashes where just Lara has his number because of the clash of styles and the fact that Lara, you know, really had, you know, physically was the bigger guy on. So, it's not a silly thing to say. It's not a silly thing to say, because it's kind of the same with Cancio and Machado. You know, Cancio was smaller, but just the fact that he always went to the body, and Machado had kind of outgrown that division, was just a perfect storm. Yeah.
So we'll see. You know, obviously, I'm sure they're going to try to make the rematch within the next, I would say, maybe 3 months, 3-4 months. You know, as quick as they can, and try to get Warrington back in the win column so he can kind of be back in the mix, you know, and try to get a bigger name, like, which was his original plan, but obviously it backfired. But moving on, fight you mentioned earlier in the conversation, Zelfa Barrett gets the 12-round unanimous decision win over Kiko Martinez, who suffers the 10th loss of his career. Kiko Martinez is now in the Gabriel Rosado territory with the double-digit losses. But obviously, he's still getting opportunities. Just like I think we mentioned last week in the last episode, Kiko Martinez he fought Santa Cruz out here at the Honda Center in Anaheim.
Everyone. He's fought absolutely everybody.
He's fought everybody. He's one of those guys. He's kind of like a Darnell Boone, a Gabriel Rosado. He fights everyone, and like he always gives you like, decent competition. Like, so they just put him in there because he's always game in a sense, if you want to look at it that way. So I guess isn't it strange to see like that there's fighters who make a career out of that? Like, yeah, man, I'm down. Just call me and I'm in. Or they go in there, and it's just crazy to see. But what do you think about Barrett's unanimous decision win?
It definitely wasn't a unanimous decision win. I thought that was one of the worst scorecards I've ever seen. I thought the up there with that Miguel Vasquez against Louis Ritson. There's no way on earth that Zelfa Barrett won. I think two of the judges had it 118, 111.
What?
Absolutely ridiculous. I had it, I was just kind of scoring it, watching it on my phone, and I thought, that Kiko Martinez maybe scraped it by a round. So it was one of those where, like, you could kind of see with a swing round here and there, like maybe Zelfa Barrett by one round, a draw, maybe Kiko Martinez by a round. But yeah, that was one of the worst scorecards I've ever seen in my entire life. And like Eddie Hearn said afterwards, I thought Eddie was really honest, really open by saying that, the judges aren't doing him any favors by favoring the home fighter because people aren't going to want to come here. If you were a fighter and they say like, hey, do you want to come fight Zelfa Barrett in the UK? You'd say, no, not a chance, because I'm going to have to knock him out to get a draw. So I thought, Eddie was, very honest when he said that. And it's something that really should be looked at because those scorecards were absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what on earth they were watching. It's getting to the point now where, people on Twitter and everybody else are just going to start saying like, England is like what Germany was, like 5 to 10 years ago when nobody really wanted to go over there because you'd already lost the fight unless you ended up knocking them out.
Right.
So, it really needs to be looked at, really does need to be looked at, because you had that. And then you also had the Josh Warrington fight where I think 90% of people believe Josh should really have been stopped after the 4th round. So it wasn't a very good weekend for British boxing.
You mentioned Eddie Hearn, how that is a good quality that he has, is that he's usually he tries to be as transparent as he can in his interviews. And like you mentioned here, he pretty much acknowledged, like, yeah, you know what? That wasn't the correct score. Like the judges aren't helping him, with the fans aren't going to want to come to these fights because they think there's corruption favoring the hometown fighter, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of Eddie Hearn's personality like that, do you think like he knows, obviously he's been in the boxing business for a while now, his dad and everything. Do you think he knows what he's doing when he's like saying that? Like, either way, it's good that he's saying it, at least from the boxing fans' perspective and in the media, it works. I'm not saying not to do it, but do you think he knows what he's doing just because he does have that promoter mindset, that marketing mindset? Like, if he goes and says like, hey, I thought he won, does he say it more to be like the darling of the boxing fans?
I think that it's, nowadays that he can go on social media and he can see what everybody is saying. So before he goes into an interview, he probably knows that, 90% of the people that were watching the fight thought that, Kiko, the scorecards either should have been closer, Kiko maybe by a round, or, Zelfa Barrett could have won, but just not by that margin. So I think that, he kind of has that, going into any kind of interview he does afterwards. And, I'd like to think that, Eddie kind of is very honest a lot of the time. A lot of the things he says kind of, come to fruition, or, if something comes out, that he'll kind of tell us the truth. He'll be like, hey, there is some truth in that, but here's the whole story.
Yeah.
So, I think he is pretty transparent. I'm sure there is things that he doesn't tell us because he can't, or, he needs to keep, certain things close to his chest.
Right.
But I think he's kind of so, modern and such a good salesman that he knows that trying to bluff us with something like that is just going to make him look like an idiot.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think like you said, Kiko Martinez fought a good fight, but I don't think he should willingly expect a rematch against Barrett. They're just gonna move on, and hopefully they're gonna hope that people forget about it. That's what's gonna happen.
I know Eddie kind of touched on it. They were going to do it, and they were going to do it up in Manchester, which I think is Zelfa Barrett's neck of the woods. That's kind of where he's from. And I thought Zelfa Barrett, what he said afterwards was very good as well. I think the way that he spoke and the way that he let like Kiko Martinez and his team kind of be interviewed and speak afterwards, very, very graceful. You could see that he was very mature. And he kind of grew on me, because of that. I thought he did really well.
Oh yeah, I think that's always a good quality to have. I think one of the biggest instances where that happened that popped into my mind when you said that was when Canelo fought Mayweather. I don't know if you remember when they were announcing those scores. They had announced, I think one of them was 114 or something like that. And when they were announcing that score, the camera was on Canelo at that point, and he was shaking his head, like saying, like, no, that's not right. Like he knew, like that is not right. Like I lost, that score is ridiculous. Like, so, and I think he said after the fight, he said, yeah, like I lost and whatever, or he acknowledged like, yeah, it didn't work out. So I think it is good for the sport, for these fighters to be like, I'm cool with them saying like, not like we're going to talk about Adrian Broner's fight, obviously this upcoming weekend, but when Broner fought Pacquiao, he thought
he jumped on the ropes.
Yeah. He thought, maybe he was just playing up his personality, the entertainment side factor or whatever. Maybe it seemed like he really thought that he won, but it makes for good TV, for drama. But I think it's good for the sport, for the integrity of the sport overall, for these fighters, when they know that they probably didn't win, or at least the scores don't accurately reflect the fight, for them to at least show some kind of way to acknowledge it. They don't really have to say like, yeah, I lost, like they can just say, yeah, you know what? Like that wasn't what the score should have been. Like they can still say like, I still felt I edged it out, but I don't, he fought a good fight and he also won some rounds. Like, you kind of still keep your stock, but you still kind of give credit to what other people saw. So, I mean, hopefully, like you said, Barrett kind of doing that, letting Kiko Martinez's team talk is a good sign. But, not everybody's like that. Hence, Adrian Broner, who we're going to touch on later in the show. Moving on from Fantasy Springs Casino out here in Southern California, in the Coachella Valley on DAZN. Jojo Diaz, he actually had to fight 2 fights in the span of 2 days. One against the scale, which he lost. And then he fought to a draw against Diaz-Rahkimov. So the day before the fight, Jojo Diaz was, I believe, was it 3.5 pounds overweight of the 130-pound weight limit. He was 133.5 or something like that, around there. And obviously they stripped him. The IBF stripped him of his belt since he was over the weight limit. And I believe in the state of California, for the California State Athletic Commission, I think you can, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it 2 pounds? You can be, if you're within 2 pounds over the weight limit, they give you the allotted amount of time to lose that. And you come back and you reweigh. And if you lost the pounds, then good to go. You keep the belt, whatever. But he was over that threshold. So the commission, I think they charged him. How much? What was the percentage?
10%.
10%, where half of it goes to the commission and half of it went to Rahkimov. Before we kind of get into the actual fight, which was, like I said, a majority draw. Well, what was your first thought when you saw that he didn't make weight and he lost the belt?
That all the rumors were true.
which is
he came into camp weighing 172 pounds.
Do you know at this point, I know like there's a pandemic, COVID, obviously it's different. I'm not saying that I still give people like the excuse, but like there was one fighter who had said, he might've been a top ranked guy. It'll pop up to me later. But I think they had said like, no, like, you know, as a pro fighter, you have to find a way to still do your job. Like, what do you think about a statement like that in relation to, you know, obviously this Jojo Diaz missing weight? Like, you know, they're professional fighters, they're pros, especially a seasoned fighter like Jojo Diaz. Are you giving them that excuse of the pandemic, the COVID, like, or are you done with that in terms of the sport?
No, he's just unprofessional.
So you still think it's like completely unprofessional?
Yeah,
even though there's a pandemic.
Rahkimov made weight. He's also in a pandemic. He doesn't earn as much money as Jojo Diaz. He made weight. Castaño makes weight. Castaño does a 9-to-5 job and boxes. You know, so everyone else on the card made weight. Jojo Diaz has done it before. I know Jojo Diaz was going through some stuff outside of the ring, and you know, he split up with his ex-girlfriend, then got a new girlfriend, and then obviously got her pregnant straight away. And, you know, he was ballooning up in weight, and, you know, he was reports of him, he was drinking a lot. You know, he came into camp at 172 pounds, just unprofessional. Me and you go to work 9 to 5.
Right.
He's a professional fighter. He doesn't do anything else. Obviously, he has a lot of downtime, which, you know, maybe actually be not great because you end up maybe eating and sitting around and not doing a lot because you don't have that kind of, you know, you have to get up in the morning and do certain things where he has a lot of downtime. So maybe that's, you know, kind of bad for him in the sense, but he's a professional fighter. He should be in the gym. He shouldn't be ballooning up to that kind of weight. He's getting older. But he's done it before. So,
right.
And then his statement afterwards about all the excuses he came out with, I think it's just Jojo Diaz to a T. He just seems to be very, you know, self-centered. He trains himself. He doesn't want to listen to anybody else. Just kind of a spoiled little kid. That's what it comes across as, in my opinion.
I think that I could see that sentiment for an opinion like that, and it's not that I necessarily disagree. I just think that before he won the title from Tim Farmer, he's always been a hungry guy, you know, to really fight, scratch and claw.
Literally a hungry guy. That's why I was 172 pounds.
172 pounds, a good one. That's like, and we're done for the show this week, guys. But I still think, like, I think that when he won the title, obviously it was an emotional moment for him when he won in Miami. I think it was last February, just before the pandemic hit. It was obviously an emotional moment for him. He was right there hugging his dad, you know, hugging Joel Diaz when he was still in his corner and all that stuff. So, and then the pandemic hit, which obviously didn't help because, you know, if there was no pandemic, he would have had to defend the title within probably the next 4 or 5 months again, you know, which probably would have kept him in the rotation, at least in terms of his schedule. I just think that a combination of the pandemic, which is a big reason, but I still agree that it is unprofessional. I agree with that. But a combination of the pandemic and him, like you said, he was going through some stuff. And we're not saying that, like, as we're not insinuating that, like, he was on Twitter all the time. He was on Twitter posting kind of like, you know, what he was feeling, you know, and I think he would post stuff on Instagram too. And, you know, obviously he was battling some of his own internal demons, quote unquote, and going through some stuff. You know, like you said, he had some stuff with his significant other, and then he found another person, another girlfriend, and then he had a baby with her recently. And, you know, he was on a high. He was on a high because of the world title. He was on a high because he worked so hard to get there, which I don't think anybody can dispute the credit that he deserves for that. He was on a high, and in combination with the pandemic, you know, it was hard to, nobody knew what the future was holding. So he just kind of got a little too comfortable. If the rumors are true that he ballooned up to 172 pounds, that's 40 pounds. That's over 40 pounds that he had to lose. That's a lot. And, you know, it's not necessarily a healthy thing to always do that. Not everybody's body reacts the same, is the same. And like you said, he's getting older. And he was 3.5 pounds overweight. 3.5 pounds. Like we've seen like a pound, half a pound, a pound and a half, or what have you. And then people are still like, oh, he's overweight. But then they come back in 2 hours and okay, he hit the limit. Boom. And the next day they still win their fight, for example. And they're just like, oh yeah, people forget about the whole weight issue because they made it. But he was 3.5 pounds overweight. 3.5 pounds. I know he mentioned in his interviews after, like, there was maybe some health issues, or his, like, there could have been, but you know, I think that the fight was still good. He still fought hard, because I thought after that, I was like, dang, he's mentally done. He's mentally done just based on his history, how he's, you know, the battles he's went through mentally on his own. I thought for sure, I was like, yeah, he's mentally done, especially when we were like previewing the fight in last week's episode. And you had mentioned like, put your money on Rahkimov. I thought, yeah, you know what? He's probably going to lose. He's most likely going to lose, but he still fought hard. You know, he fought to a draw. Obviously a draw for him in general, for both of them, is better than a loss for either of them. So, you know, obviously one or the other wanted to win, but a draw is better than a loss. But I think him losing the title on a scale was the biggest loss he could have. I don't know. I think, like we touched on, he didn't have Joel Diaz in this time in his camp. I know his dad was still like his main trainer, but Joel Diaz has more experience in big fights. He's been at the big events. He's been in the big dances more than Jojo Diaz and his dad have been. And obviously it showed, because he didn't have any trouble with Tevin Farmer. He looked very good. Tevin Farmer, I don't even think won a round. It didn't seem like he won a round, if I remember correctly. So I think any boxing fan after that fight, after the Tevin Farmer fight, would have thought, dang, you know what? Like, he's going to keep this team, and he's going to improve. He's going to defend that title, and he's probably going to get some good paydays and have some good fights. And then, you know, he separated from Joel Diaz or what have you. And obviously this is the result, you know. But I mean, like we talked about just before we came on air, Rahkimov is now, they're now talking about, there's reports that he's going to get a shot at the IBF title. And it's not going to be against Jojo Diaz or anything like that. So, I mean, where does Jojo Diaz go from here? I know he posted something on Instagram or Twitter after the fight, or within the few days after the fight, where he says, like, he said, I still want the big names. And I think he tagged a lot of the big names. I mean, let's start with Rahkimov first. Where does Rahkimov go from here? We knew that he was a real deal. Obviously he is a danger. You know, he could still probably show a lot more of those qualities in subsequent fights, but where does he go from here?
It's looking like, due to the announcement from, I think it was from Mike Coppinger or somebody, that he's going to be fighting for the vacant IBF title after the draw against the Japanese fighter. Is it pronounced Agawa, who actually fought Tevin Farmer a few years ago, beat Tevin Farmer, but ended up testing positive. So was stripped, and then Tevin Farmer eventually went on to win the IBF title, which he eventually lost to Jojo Diaz. So it's kind of a big circle. It keeps going round. So, you know, good fight for him. You know, he came in, made weight, was pretty good, kind of gave the fight up in the last few rounds where Jojo managed to steal it, I thought. Jojo Diaz, I think he thinks he's a bigger name than he is. You know, why would, you know, some of those bigger names want to fight him? They'll be wanting to fight, you know, people with bigger fan bases, bigger purses, and, you know, try to either pick up or unify some of the world titles. So I don't really know where Jojo Diaz thinks.
And you're right. I still think that he's still going to be able to get some solid names. But, you know, he kind of hit the brakes he was on a high after having the title. You know, he had he was holding a lot of the cards because he had a piece of the 130-pound world titles. But now that he doesn't have it, he's still obviously a good name to have to fight, especially if somebody can come in and fight him and beat him. He's a good name on the resume. I don't think any legitimate boxing fan can argue that. At least I can't. But he pumped the brakes on his career in terms of getting the big paydays and the big fights, like you kind of just mentioned. I know after that news came out, especially when he fought a draw, I think the day after or what have you. What matchup did I tell you the Golden Boy should do if they can make it work, and it would kind of be intriguing?
Oh yeah, I remember you texting me now.
Come on, man. I know you remember.
I can't remember.
Ryan Garcia, Jojo Diaz at 135.
Yeah, now see that'd be an intriguing matchup because
that's an intriguing
Jojo's
matchup.
Well skilled.
Yeah, he is. He's still well skilled.
Fighter. Yeah, he just doesn't really have, He
doesn't have that pop, but he has the stamina and the fundamentals to give you a fight. He's got good fundamentals.
That would be an interesting fight, and it'd be a good, good fight for Ryan. I wouldn't call it a step up, but it's a similar level to someone of like Luke Campbell's stature.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah. I that's how I look at him. And for Ryan, I think it'd be a good matchup regardless. Like one or the other could win. I would favor Jojo Diaz a little bit. But if somebody like Ryan, who obviously has the bigger fan base and the popularity and the stock, in terms of money right now and all that stuff, if somebody like Ryan Garcia could beat like a Jojo Diaz, a Luke Campbell and a Jojo Diaz back to back, or at least within 3 fights or something like that, he's a really good name to have on your record. So, and they're both Golden Boy fighters. Mm-hmm. It's easy to make in-house, and I don't know. I think that's an intriguing fight. And especially if like Jojo was closer to 135 than he was to 130, at least from this weight, I think that's a possibility that people haven't really talked about, like I think I mentioned it in a past episode, like months ago. I was like, hey, if Jojo Diaz ever moves up to 135 or whatever, like, I think that'd be an intriguing matchup, but I think Jojo Diaz would be fine with it. He'd be like, yeah, I'll take that fight. But I don't think Ryan would, because I think Ryan Garcia is on that high horse right now where he's just like, I just want the big names. I want Gervonta Davis. I want this guy. I want this guy. And if you want to measure it by his popularity, he's right. In terms of money, I get it. But sometimes obviously it's hard to make those fights across the street, quote unquote. So
I believe him when I see him. I think they're all talk.
Lopez
says, I'll fight Devin Haney, but don't price yourself out, Devin. Don't price yourself out. And then he says he wants $10 million to fight flipping George Kambosos. Ryan Garcia talks about fighting Gervonta Davis. He's going to fight Javier Fortuna. He's not going to fight Gervonta Davis. So they're all just smoke and mirrors. That's all it is.
They're all talk. I mean, they're all growing up. I mean, we're all growing up in the social media age, but the social media age for their age generation, like a Teofimo Lopez or Ryan Garcia, that's their bread and butter. It is. Like we're all in the thick of that world right now, and it's ongoing, obviously. But to that generation, it's
the be all and end all.
That's the be all end all for them. Yeah. It is. So you're right. I think right now they're all talk. They all say it. They all say don't price yourself out. I think Teofimo Lopez is a good example, calling out people like Devin Haney or somebody and telling them not to price themselves out. But then you have Top Rank trying to make the fight with Kambosos, who's the Australian fighter, I believe. And then they're reporting that Top Rank is having trouble getting Teofimo Lopez to agree to the fight because he wants $10 million. Yeah. Let me ask you this. I know, obviously, everybody who's listened to our podcast on a consistent basis know what your opinion is on Ryan Garcia. You're not the biggest fan, but who can you see getting $10 million first? Teofimo Lopez or Ryan Garcia?
You mean in one fight, right? Obviously.
Yeah, not like in a span of a couple fights. I'm talking about like one fight if they get to that point.
That's a good question. I mean,
wait until next week.
Maybe Lopez, because I think Lopez has the chance to, he's already like unified the 135 division apart from the WBC. Really, well, he kind of already has, because Lomachenko should have been the WBC champion.
It's a weird situation,
but I could see that if he, from what he's done, and then fighting somebody like the winner of Ramirez and Josh Taylor, who unified the 140. So then you've got the 135 undisputed champion fighting the 140 undisputed champion. I don't know whether he'd get 10 million, but he'd get a good chunk of change from that, especially if he did it like in England at Wembley, or if it's Josh Taylor, like he does it in Glasgow at one of the football stadiums up there.
You think he can get 10 million for those
fights?
I
don't think he'll get 10, but there's not many fighters that would get 10 regardless. You took that's like Manny Pacquiao and Tyson and Fury type of money.
I think the only $10 million fight per purse, if you want to look at it like that, at 135 right now, like legitimately, is Davis versus Garcia, just because of their fan bases. I really think so. I honestly think so. Garcia has the popularity. He's obviously got the social media following. He has, like, you don't even have to spend money on marketing for him, because his social media is his marketing. And he has all these YouTuber friends and social media friends who help him promote the fight. They bring him on their shows. They promote them on their social handles and stuff like that. And they reach all their audience. And Davis has already proven that he, based on his ratings, like, the ratings he's got from his fights, he's going up in his potential to draw. He's going up and up with each passing fight. And Mayweather has been smart with him and keeping him around, associating with him as much as he can, always mentioning his name in interviews or bringing him to places. And then there's a lot of celebrities. Every time Davis fights, they'll shout him out, and they like him because Mayweather, is already friends with them. It's just like, oh yeah, this is my best fighter I have in my stable. He's legit. And these celebrities fight like, damn, and then they tweet or they post or something like that. And then those casual fans who follow those accounts, they're like, oh, what is he talking about? Who is this kid? Oh, wow, that's a crazy knockout or something. Especially after the highlight reel knockout when he knocked out Santa Cruz. So, I mean, I honestly think that's the only fight at this very moment that can have purses of $10 million a piece is Davis versus Garcia, just because of their popularity and the reach that they have. And even $10 million a piece is still a stretch. It's still a stretch. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but if you're talking about like, okay, which two fighters can we put together to try to hit that mark? It's going to give us the best chance to hit that mark. I think it's those two. I don't think Lopez is involved.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially on pay-per-view. Obviously, that's the only way that the guys are going to make that type of money is to go on, is to switch over to go to pay-per-view. So it'd be interesting. No, that I would like to see what kind of figures that would do down the line if they eventually do meet.
Right. I mean, it is what it is. Garcia does have a point when he's like, yeah, all the world champions are calling me out. Well, yeah, like I think everybody knows, like, you can have a world title or world titles, which is great, it legitimizes you. But the guys that always get called out or this and that are the guys who generate the revenue. Like, look at everybody still calling out Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao still obviously got, based on his last couple fights, he's still obviously dangerous, assuming he's still on that same pattern. But Manny Pacquiao 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago was a monster, and even now, like, he's obviously been able to sustain a piece of that monstrous streak, and they're still calling him out because he's still drawing ratings. It all comes down to the money, and Ryan Garcia, for as crazy kid as he can be and as crying online and, talking about this, talking about that, all the drama that comes along with him. He has a point when he says, like, these guys are calling me out and they have the world titles. Yeah, kind of have a point. But I think, like you said, just going back to the original point that you made, all of them are all talk. They are. They're all talk, And I think the only legitimate one that I really think is trying to make a fight with the others is Devin Haney. Because I really think Eddie Hearn, based on his track record, I think he's really tried to reach out to these other fighters and just say, yeah, fight Devin Haney. Like, what is it going to take? What is it going to take? But they just don't want to. Like you said, it all comes down to the talk. They just want the clout online. That's what it is.
Which is funny because at the end of the day, I think the biggest fights and the biggest purses they would all get are fighting each other.
Oh, yeah. That's a lucrative division right now.
Yeah.
That's a lucrative division.
So just do it. Just do it. Just fight each other.
Yeah. That's a lucrative division. I mean, look at, for example, 147. How many years have we seen the same guys, especially at PBC, just rotate with each other? And they're all making millions and millions of dollars just fighting each other. Even if they lose, they come back, they fight, whoever, an Adrian Granados or something, and they beat him, and they get back into the win column, and then they say, oh, okay, you're going to fight Errol Spence again, or you're going to fight Sean Porter again, or vice versa. Like they're just rotating. They're just rotating. That's all they're doing, and they're making a ton of money just fighting each other for like the last 4 or 5 years. That's what it is. 135 should do the same thing, but obviously it helps that Al Heyman has a good chunk of the welterweights, pretty much all the players in the welterweight division under contract, so it's easier for him to make. But if that wasn't the case and all these fighters at 135 could do it, barring any issues with respective promoters and stuff like that, they can each just rotate. They can all rotate for years. They can all rotate for years, find each other, and make some good money just fighting each other in rotation over the next 5 to 6 years. But that's a fantasy right now, like you said. They're all talk. They're all talk, and we'll see who actually pulls the trigger first. As of right now, it's Lopez. He fought Lomachenko. He fought the best guy in the division. So as of right now, he's, in terms of that, he's the top. He's the cream of the crop right now in terms of talent. But in terms of popularity and maybe drawing power, it's Davis and Garcia. So whatever. It is what it is. But I just real quick on Jojo Diaz, I think he's going to come back. I think he's going to come back and really find the groove that he was on. I just think that combination of the pandemic and all the stuff that he was going through, and then he was on that high because he won the world title. Obviously, it was just a bad combination. He didn't know how to handle it. But I still think he'll be fine. He's going to come back and kind of get back into the rhythm of winning. And I would say next year he gets a pretty decent name, maybe another world title shot.
At welterweight?
At welterweight? You mean? No, I would say probably maybe light heavyweight, 172. I don't know. Moving on. Brian Castaño gets the 12-round unanimous decision win and takes the WBO super welterweight title, 154 pounds from Patrick Teixeira. Castaño takes the belt over to the PBC Al Heyman team. Teixeira was obviously a Golden Boy promoted fighter. I thought I watched a good amount of this fight. I thought Castaño looked like he was a hunter. He just kept going, and like he impressed me. Impressed me. I've seen like highlights of him in other fights and here and there, but this was like one of the first legitimate fight that I really kind of watched involving him. He looked sharp. And he looked confident. I mean, what do you think?
It was a great performance. I thought Teixeira was really going to come in and do like he did in his last fight and just be so busy, throw so many punches that he kind of just wears you down just because he just keeps coming forward, throwing punches in bunches, and like he just gets to the point where he just mentally just wears you down. But Castaño was just unbelievable. Just kind of walked him down, like you said, like a hunter, just cut off the ring, was heavy-handed. And I have some stats here for you. It's just Castaño was busier and accurate. CompuBox saw him land 33% of his total punches and 37% of his power shots, compared to Teixeira, who landed 20% overall and only 25% of his power shots. So that just goes to show 20% to 33% of overall landed punches.
Yeah.
So accurate. It's unbelievable. It was great performance, great win. Teixeira is kind of like, he's one of those guys that has kind of done everything in boxing, been up, been down, come all the way back up again, managed to get a world title out of nowhere.
Right.
Unfortunately, only had it for that one fight, but Castaño looks good. He's in the PBC, so I'm sure we'll see him now just kind of held hostage in the PBC, and that's just going to be, thrown around all the PBC crew guys.
Well, I mean, the PBC has all the players at 154 too. Mm-hmm. Jarrett Hurd, Charlo, Lara, So in terms of, like we just talked about, 135 and 147, the rotation making money with each other, fighting each other over the course of a couple years. Castaño winning in terms of the business side and him getting the most bang for his buck, pun intended, bang. Him winning the title and going back, and they were talking about him fighting Charlo and stuff like that. I think after a performance like that, I think he just made himself more of a serious contender. And I mean, obviously he's not a contender anymore since he's a world champ, but he became a more serious threat to the big guys at 154 pounds, like a Charlo, like a Hurd, like a Julian Williams, like those guys, I think Castaño is now in that mix on a serious level. And whoever he fights, which, obviously Charlo would probably be the biggest name at that weight class at the moment. It should be a good fight. It should be a good fight if he goes over there and fights like a Charlo, who's the one that lost? Was it the 154 pound Charlo? It was, right? He lost against
Tony Harrison.
So he's already shown that he could lose, but Charlo, obviously they're still dangerous. Both Charlos are, but that also makes a potential matchup with Castaño more intriguing. Charlo has multiple belts at 154 pounds. He's a unified champion. And now Castaño has a piece of the 154 pound world titles. So you fight together. It's a unified matchup. That's a pretty intriguing matchup, especially after his win against Teixeira, where he goes to Golden Boy, takes the belt, and brings it back to BBC. I mean, what do you think of a Charlo matchup eventually?
I think so. I think that Charlo's kind of like the big dog over at the PBC. So I think it kind of makes sense, even though Castaño's good. He hasn't got the backing behind him, but on that performance, I think it would be a good idea to maybe put, that backing behind him, promote him a little bit. But I do see him maybe being fed to Charlo. But if Charlo overlooks him, if he's looking past him for a bigger fight and a bigger payday, he could come unstuck, because Castaño was good, very accurate, powerful.
Oh, yeah. He was sharp. He was very sharp. Yeah, very sharp and very calculated. And then, and shout out to our friends at the Combat Sports Collective too. Our friend of the show, photographer Luis Mejia, who's a part of that team. They were one of the sponsors on Castaño's gear on DAZN this past weekend. So shout out to the Combat Sports Collective team, friends of the show. Moving on, probably the fight I was looking forward to, which just based on the LA area with Golden Boy fighters out here. Ronnie Rios, after coming off probably the most significant win of his career, as he gave Diego de la Hoya his first loss of his career in 2019, I believe, gets the 10-round unanimous decision win over Oscar Negrete, who's also a Golden Boy fighter. I was surprised. Do I want to say surprised? Is that the right word? I expected Negrete, just based on his past performances, like against Joshua Franco and all these other fighters. I thought Negrete would be a little bit more competitive, but Rios kind of just eliminated all that. He looked sharp. like he didn't miss a beat. What'd you think about Rios' performance?
A great performance. I thought he won every single round. Looked really good. Kind of strange that he gave himself a C rating in the fight in the interview afterwards when he was chatting to Beto Duran. I thought he looked really good. I thought it was a good stylistic matchup for him. Negrete is very one-dimensional. Doesn't really have any other gear. Just comes at you, head down, one gear. Ronnie Rios, I thought, switched it up really well. A good performance from him, really, because he's kind of been a little bit... not stale, but like he hasn't been out really since that big win over Diego De La Hoya. He had, I think, one fight on the YouTube card that I was at, but it wasn't really against anyone that great.
Right.
This was kind of more of a name in Oscar Negrete in California anyway.
Right.
And I think a fight against someone like Brandon Figueroa would be good to try and get the full WBA title. Or I don't know, there's so many WBA titles. I know that Rios had the regular, and I think
it's
Figueroa
had
the...
Is the gold WBA, is that the regular? Or
I think Rios maybe had the gold. He had the regular.
Yeah,
and
it's that new...
Pacquiao have like the full title or whatever.
Yeah, that new title, gold WBA that they added.
Yeah.
It's stupid, but... No, yeah. I think... I don't think a lot of people expected him to just kind of sweep the fight against Negrete. Just based on Negrete's past fights, I thought Negrete would... have some moments. I still picked Rios to win the fight. But yeah, he really showed that, he's still on that track to in the win column with that momentum, in a better way to put it, from that Diego De La Hoya fight out here at StubHub in Carson, California, in 2019, I believe. So we'll see. I mean, you said Brandon Figueroa would be a nice matchup for him following, but realistically, if you want to include Brandon Figueroa, give me another two names who you would like to see Rios in the ring with in his next fight.
That's a good question. In and around that weight division, kind of hard because obviously with him being PBC, Ronnie Rios being with Golden Boy. We know how, obviously, fights don't really like to go cross promotion. But, essentially, I would like to see him in with somebody like, I'm trying to think who's actually above him in the rankings that would be a good matchup for him. He's ranked number 6 on BoxRec. Angelo Leo, maybe. Angelo Leo just lost his title to Stephen Fulton. Obviously, there's not going to be a world title on the line for him. But I think that would be a good fight. Danny Roman, I'm sure they've probably sparred with each other. I think that'd be actually, especially out here in the Southern California area, I think that'd be a pretty entertaining fight. Yeah,
I actually really like that fight. I actually do.
And then really obviously, like that fight. Looking at the people who hold the titles in that division, you look at obviously Stephen Fulton, Luis Neri.
I could see that a Danny Roman fight. That's actually, I don't know why I forgot about him.
MJ,
I can see that.
MJ holds 2 of the titles. That'd be a good fight.
That's true.
Both on DAZN.
I mean, I think I think Golden Boy is going to try to get him a world title shot if they can, which is obviously smart. I think he deserves it. He's been Ronnie Rios has been fighting a long time now. Just over 35 professional fights. Trains out of Santa Ana, California, out here in the Orange County area of Southern California. Him and his brother Alexis Rocha, who's just suffered his first loss last year, but he's young enough where he's going to bounce back, and just based on they've been on the show a couple times, so we know their work ethic, and Lex will be back better and stronger than ever. But like I said, Golden Boy is going to try to find a world title shot for Rios, but if for some reason they don't, I think a matchup with Danny Roman would actually be great. Danny Roman's I think he's still with Matchroom, or is he with PBC now? He's with PBC. Damn, that's right. He was with Matchroom. Oh, that kind of kills that. But if you kind of ignore that, a Rios Danny Roman fight would actually be pretty entertaining, I would think.
Yeah, very similar styles. I don't think there's much in them, really. Obviously, Danny Roman's held the world titles, 2 world titles, IBF, WBA for a short period of time, lost to MJ. So,
Right.
That'd be a good fight. Danny Roman or MJ Akhmadmelidov. I mean, I think both of those have kind of been, I know MJ's definitely been talked about. They talked about that on DAZN. So,
Right. I can see it.
Good fight.
MJ's trained by Joel Diaz, right?
Yep.
So, all Southern California guys. It could work. I can see it. And I think Ronnie Rios deserves a world title shot for as hard as he's been working. So we'll see how he goes from this point forward. Moving on from the bubble at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas on ESPN, Richard Comey is back in the win column as he gets the 6th-round knockout over Jackson Martinez. What'd you think about this matchup?
I thought Comey looked good. Good to see him come back. Obviously, it doesn't look like that loss took much out of him. I thought it was a good stylistic matchup for him, and really just go onwards and upwards from here. I think he could still, do things in and around this division. This division's very, very strong, like we touched on earlier. Probably one of the strongest out there at the minute. So there's some big fights in there for him. He's got a very fan-friendly style as well. It's heavy-handed, kind of comes to trade. And I think even though he lost to Teofimo Lopez, it kind of got his name out there because of the style of getting knocked out. So in a weird way, he kind of crossed over to more fans.
That's true. I mean, Richard Comey is obviously a name at the 135 now. He's would look good on a resume if somebody manages to beat him, obviously. But his name is also involved in 135. Maybe like could you see a Lomachenko come back and fight a Comey in his comeback fight? Or could you see, maybe like a Gervonta Davis fight a Comey at 135 or, anybody realistic like that in terms of the bigger names in that division? What do you think?
All of those sound good. I think Comey's a good fighter to watch. Just the problem we have, obviously, is that unfortunately, we get those stupid cross-promotion type deals where PBC won't fight Top Rank and stuff like that. But Top Rank has, people in and around that division that we could see Comey in against. So right. I think we should hopefully see, him back in there. They owe him some big fights. He kind of won the world title and then they kind of threw him in there against Teofimo Lopez. And even though he was the world champion, he was the B-side going in. They all wanted Teofimo Lopez to win.
Yeah. Moving on, Adam Blue Nose Lopez. He's been on the show in the past. Gets the majority win over Jason Sanchez for the NABF featherweight title. What do you think about Lopez's performance and his edged out win?
He kind of has that style where he doesn't really kind of ever really go in and dominate fights. He is good, works on the inside well, good movement, doesn't have too much pop, which I think is going to be his downfall, maybe getting up to those world championship levels when people realize that he doesn't have much power to really back you up. Lovely guy. We love him. We've had him on the show, been down to Buddy McGurk's gym. Nothing really negative to say around him. Such a lovely kid. I hope he does well. He keeps winning. He's done things the hard way. Never really been the A side all the way up, hasn't been wrapped up in cotton wool. He's been in there with Stephen Fulton, Oscar Valdez. So, he's the only losses he's had are to 2 world champions.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And he's only, 17 fights, 16, 17, 18 fights, something like that. So, and he's already been in some pretty memorable, matchups, which is good. So, rounding off that card, Jared Anderson gets a 6th-round TKO also over Kingsley Ibe. I hope I said that right. Who suffers a second loss of his career. What do you think about Anderson's knockout performance?
He looks a beast. Best heavyweight coming out of the US, I think. For a big guy, looks pretty skillful, looks athletic. He's been in there with some of the best heavyweights in terms of training camps. I know that he was in Tyson Fury's when Fury was over here. That camp spoke about him, in glowing terms. So just kind of keep moving him slowly but surely, because you don't really need to, come onto the scene at a young age as a heavyweight. Mike Tyson is probably the anomaly. If you look at like Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, they're all, didn't really reach the pinnacle till, later in their career. So you kind of get time to grow, fill out, get your man strength because, they're literally giants, heavyweights now. So,
right.
Yeah, slowly but surely. There's no need to rush it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Moving on, fight previews this upcoming Saturday, the 20th of February. Once again, from the Wembley Arena in London on DAZN. David Avanesian, 26-3-1, goes up against Josh Kelly, 10-0-1 for. Damn, I feel like this is the first time I've ever seen this title for the EBU European welterweight title.
Goddamn Americans!
What do you think about this matchup between Avanesian and Josh Kelly?
Great clash of styles, a fight that we've kind of been waiting for some time. Obviously, it got postponed at least once, I think twice. Avanesian, big, heavy-handed fighter. Josh Kelly, kind of, I'm hoping that when he steps up to this fight, he boxes and moves, doesn't stay in the pocket too long. Because like we touched on before, when we saw him at Phoenix, kind of has that Amir Khan thing about where, when he gets hit, he then wants to stand and trade. Not his style. He hasn't really got the big, strong body shape to be able to do that. He's got away with it so far because he's been kind of fighting, obviously, the lower level opponents, kind of journeyman, really, obviously, because he's just starting out his career. Can't really afford to do that against David Avanesian. Great fight out of those matchroom cards that he announced for the start of the year. This is probably the one that everyone's been looking forward to for this fight.
Florian Marcoux also 7-0-1 goes up against Rylan. I hope I said that right. Rylan Charlton 6-0-1. At least on paper, based on their records, this kind of looks like a pretty decent matchup. Am I wrong?
Should be a good fight. Obviously Charlton came onto the matchroom stable when he came in and blew out Joseph Laws. Marcoux came into the matchroom when he's been signed by Sam Jones. Didn't look too great in his first appearance. I would say, actually, looking on that performance, Marcoux kind of just stood there and really used his size and his strength. Wasn't really too much of a boxer. Charlton's kind of similar, so I don't see this going the all of the rounds. They're both very heavy-handed, big, strong guys, so it should be good whilst it lasts. One of those type of fights.
While it lasts. Running off that card, Robbie Davis Jr., 20-2, goes up against Gabriel Galaz Valenzuela, 25-9 for the vacant IBF Intergalaxy Super Lightweight. No, it's Intercontinental. That would have been funny, though. Intergalaxy Super Lightweight title, regional title, I'm assuming. Robbie Davis Jr. against Valenzuela. What do you think about this matchup?
Don't know too much about Valenzuela, to be honest with you. Robbie Davis Jr., though, this is one of those fights trying to get him back in there, see how he's doing. So I think it should be a win for him. And then after that, on to bigger and better things. So, maybe get the rematch against Lewis Ritson.
Also this weekend from the Mohegan Sun Casino in the state of Connecticut over here in the United States on Showtime. He's back. About Billions. He's back. Adrian Broner returns after his how long was his layoff against Manny Pacquiao? Over a year and a half. Was it 2 years? I think it was 2 years.
It's 2 years.
There he is. Now he surprised us, man. We thought you weren't going to make it, so we definitely appreciate it, man. How's it going?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me, man.
So you better announce who it is.
That's what. Well, you caught us by surprise. So, Gerald Tucker. We want to call you an assistant coach, but you're kind of like a one-man band for Adrian Broner's team. So, what kind of title would you give yourself if you had to pick?
I'm a trainer. I'm a trainer. I do everything needed plus more, but I'm a trainer. And I'm assistant my coach Michael Stafford.
Nice. So you've been with Adrian Broner for, I think, how many years now? You've been a part of his team for quite a while, right?
He talked me into coming out of a 15-year retirement back in like 2016. So you can date it back to then, but I've known him since he was 6 and I was 18. So
Right. Yeah. And that's what I mean in that respect, is that you guys have known each other at least from young ages. And, you mentioned kind of coming back out of a 15-year retirement. That was one thing that we had mentioned to some people when they knew, when we had told them that you were coming on, that they wanted to know, because, that doesn't happen, not just in boxing, but in a lot of sports. You retire and then you come back, in double digits years later, 15 years later. What was your mindset during that time? I know you said Adrian Broner convinced you, but what was that one thing you're just like, you know what, I'm going to do it?
It really wasn't the one thing. I would hit the bag and stuff as I'm training my fighters, and everybody is like, from the Shane Mosleys to the Floyd Mayweather, they're like, man, you still got it. Like, this is like 10, 15 years later, like, man, you could beat all these young guys up. And so that was really like in the back of my mind. And then him pushing me and saying that you really need to, that I really want you to do this and you really should do it, is what, ultimately led me to get back into the ring. So,
before we kind of jump into obviously Adrian's fight this weekend and all that good stuff, let's talk about you for a little bit and how you became a professional fighter at the beginning, and obviously where your career has led you to this point. Just to kind of give our listeners a little background on you.
Real quick, long story short, I was playing Little League Baseball. I was pretty good. My grades started slipping. My mom kicked me off the team. I started sneaking to a boxing gym right up the street while she was at work. I got really good at it. I became ranked number 2 in the country within 4 months, and I started bringing my grades up. I brought it to my mom, and I asked her, could I continue boxing? And she said, yeah. And that was in 1994. I started at age 15 as an amateur.
Who were some of the fighters that caught your eye as you were growing up? Like, like that's my favorite fighter, or these guys are my favorite fighter. Who'd you like watching?
Chavez was a huge one, man. Also Ricardo Lopez. I love like the Mexican inside traditional style. I'm naturally a banger at heart. I learned how to box,
Right.
But banging was always my favorite. Like, so bringing the Can Man back is like, oh man, it's exciting for me. But I liked Felix Trinidad, Gerald McClellan, because we shared the first name. Mike Tyson, of course, Roy Jones, Pernell Whitaker, and the typicals that everybody like Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali, and stuff like that.
Gerald, how was working with Roger Mayweather?
When it was time for me to turn pro in 2000, I got a call from Frank Warren over in London asking me to come over there and turn pro. I slept on that. Well, I went to sleep. I told him I needed to sleep on it. I literally. And before I slept a whole 24 hours, I got a call from Floyd Mayweather Jr. and with James Prince, his manager, on the phone. They asked me to come to Vegas. So the next morning, I took a flight out there, and I was on the team. I was under his wing. And it was right around the time where Floyd was having issues with his dad and issues with HBO. And he called the contract they were offering him a slave contract, and they started going back and forth. And Little J, James Prince, that's his nickname, ended up getting him a better deal for like $20 million instead of 12. So, and right at that moment is when Floyd decided to depart from training with his dad and then to training with his uncle as head trainer. And he said, we're not training with my dad, we're going to train my uncle. And, me being under his wing, I didn't get even one day with Big Floyd. So training with Roger was, it was best case scenario, man. He was laid back. He was cool. He was firm. He was strict. He was loving, caring. He was a genius, all in one bunch. It was best case scenario, man, for an amateur that's pretty good. I had just come off winning the Pan American Games as an amateur, so I knew a little bit about the sport. So to going into that situation with Roger, a little bit, man, Roger's going to take you through the roof. So I was beating up on professional world champions in and around my weight at Top Rank gym. That's where we trained right off the bat. And Roger was the key.
What have you taken from what Roger did to you in training that you now help out with AB?
Oh, a lot, man. Like, I learned a lot from all of my trainers. I started off with Ricardo Williams Sr., Roy Dale, Ron Craig, and then Coach Mike Stafford was like a second home for me. So those 4 trainers as an amateur, and then with Roger, I take a lot of it. I was like a young sponge watching everything that Floyd did. We was only 1 year apart, but he was my favorite fighter at the time. And he still is to this day. And so I was watching everything that Roger did, watching everything that Floyd did with Roger, and of course paying attention as I'm working with Roger. And so every little detail, everything I stole, you know, I freaked it and tweaked it, you know, to my own. And you know, according to what Roger would do, you know, if he was still here and if he had time to add to his stuff, I teach that everything to AB. And I don't just show him, you know, I talk to him why we're doing this and why we shouldn't do this and why we need to defend this way and offend this way. So everything I learned is being passed down to AB slowly but surely.
What can you remember from the first day that AB stepped in the gym?
The very first day, he was fat. He was what's the word? He was very optimistic. He had a whole bunch of energy, and he had a whole bunch of doubt. And I just kept telling him like, I just kept preparing him for the worst. I said, it's gonna be hard, man. Like it's gonna be days where we're not gonna want to get up, and we're gonna want to just lay in the bed, and we're gonna want to go fix a tequila, and but we gotta fight it. You know, once we wake up tomorrow, every bad thing that we've done yesterday, we have to sacrifice it enough. So I just kind of like, I prepared them for the worst mentally. You know, I let them know all the obstacles, every possible obstacle I could think in my head, I let them know. And we talked about it before we even stepped into the gym. And that first day, you know, even down to the nutrition and the supplement stuff, I knew what we needed to get in our bodies to be able to push ourselves Monday to be able to get back in there Tuesday without, you know, quitting. So the first day AB was he was optimistic and pessimistic. He was both, but you know, everything's about a balance. So we got through it. That was October 21st, and here we are, you know, about to fight on Showtime, February 20th.
What was what's one thing that stands out about, obviously, because you mentioned you also handle the nutrition for AB and you know, trying to get him in shape, keep him on a diet and stuff like that. Is there one thing, you know, if including nutrition or anything where like he kind of gives you a lot of slack for, like, oh man, not this again? What's that one thing that stands out in your mind?
Those little juices he takes in the morning.
One thing, man, there's so many things that stands out, man. Man, I tell him all the time, man, I mess with him, but it's kind of true, you know. Like, I remember him being a little kid. Like I said, I was 18, he was 6. And he was like one of the I'm going to be honest, he was the baddest kid in the whole gym. Mm-hmm. He was probably the baddest kid in the whole country as far as all, you know, you go to the tournaments where all the kids there and you're like 18 and they got the other divisions like junior and the kids. He was the baddest kid in the whole tournament. So every now and then I get that bad kid, even though he's grown as hell. But excuse me for cussing if you should.
It's okay. It's okay.
Gotcha. But yeah, man, like getting them, like I tell you, the sacrifice now, you know, it's no snacks, you know, it's no, I don't eat any sugar. I try to lead by example. Right. No sugar, you know, no snacks and, you know, all that crazy stuff, man. It's just, he give me the flack and with the vitamins and the supplements, you know, it started out real bad, but now he's like kind of like getting through it. And this is only the beginning. This is the first stage. I know I got to like baby it, you know, so it's going to get worse, you know, stuff's gonna start tasting nastier, and you know, the next he ain't even seen how bad it's gonna be for the next fight. So I'm just getting this progress just a little bit at a time, because you know, you try to throw somebody all the way in there and they'll say no, and then they'll run somewhere else, and then they won't get the same results.
You two seem really close, Gerald. I'm always laughing at his Instagram posts about you confiscated his headphones and then you tried to sneak and steal his, is it ice pops? Is that ice lollies or whatever they're called over here?
Yeah, they call popsicles over here.
Popsicles? Yeah. Just funny.
Man, yeah, we're real close, man. And we're kind of like the same person a little bit, not all the way, but we got a lot in common as far as personality and stuff we've been through and how we get through things. And so it's kind of like it's a mirror. So a lot of this, my sense of humor is kind of just like his, so it's easily meshable.
What's his cheat meal? I know you say you don't like to give him any type of like cheat meals during training camp and stuff, but like, what's his go-to where he's just like, come on, coach, like, let me have this one at least.
I think it would probably be, he could probably eat a whole swimming pool full of crab legs. I think it's crab legs with butter, garlic butter. Yeah. But that ain't that much weight, so I don't really be too upset about it when he orders it, because it's just a little bit and it comes right off his body. So I don't be tripping too much, but he had it like 2 or 3 times in 4 months, so it ain't that bad.
Are you like that type of coach though, in terms of, because there's some coaches who are extremely strict and they're just like, I don't want no cheat meals, like you're going to stay on a regimen for the whole training camp. But are you okay? In terms of having the confidence in your abilities, like, yeah, you can probably have one or two here and we can still find the balance and get you where we need to be?
I'm probably, people will probably tell you, I'm probably the strictest coach in history of coaching. And what I mean by that is like, you can't drop your hands not one time without me saying it. You can't drop your jab. You got to punch up when you jab. You got to do a push up, touch your chest all the way down to the ground. Now, what I can say is you have to find a balance with the athlete, because not everyone's going to take to that. And if you want to get the results, you're going to have to bend just a little bit sometimes. So I've been doing a whole lot of bending with AB as far as, some of the stuff, because, he's he's the youngest 4-time 4-division champion in history. And and I think Oscar De La Hoya was next in line. But so, dealing with that kind of fighter, they kind of feel like they know a lot, and they have the right to feel that way, and you're kind of like constantly pulling at that, with being strict and them thinking they have the master plan, or they already know the way, the blueprint to success, and you have to kind of like play with it. And so yeah, I've been given more than I would with somebody else, that's for sure. But I'm really strict, but I'm also I'm loose when it's deserving.
Based on that relationship, and obviously, the respect that he has for you, and obviously he gives you a lot. He has a lot more confidence in you than obviously other people. Has there been times where he's kind of like maybe snapped at you because he's just tired of training or this and that, and you've had to kind of like put him in his place, like, yo, like we need to do this because you need to be world champ again, or this and that? Have you had those moments?
Every day, but it ain't as serious as you may think. It just takes because I can add some comedic value to it. When things are even super tense and serious, I can say something, and the way I say it, he knows that I mean business, but also it's like kind of to take some of the edge off to where he don't have to tense up and ball his fists up. I don't have to ball mine up, because we get like that every now and then where we want to hit each other, but I can't cut him, we'll miss the fight. So I'm not going to punch him under the eye. But the other day, CVS, the pharmacy store here in the States, he was in the candy aisle looking for gummy worms and stuff. I'm like, look, we at the finish line, man. Eat a damn grapefruit. What are you doing eating some gummy worms and Jolly Ranchers and shit for us? And I felt my fist balling up because he didn't answer right, So and he looked at me. I told him, I said, I think I'm gonna slap my knuckles across your face. And he said, something coming back, right? He said, I said, yeah, a Band-Aid. So yeah, it gets tense, but we kind of like play and joke it off, but it really be serious. But yeah, that's a good question, man. It happens all the
time. What's the biggest difference between the personality that we see in front of the cameras, AB, and the one that you see when the cameras are off?
He's really transparent, man. the only difference is you can't see, because he doesn't like to blast out the good stuff that he does, what people consider good stuff compared to what he do. They call it bad stuff. But he does a lot for people, especially the people around him. He puts people in great positions. Like just for example, like Gervonta Davis, he like pulled him in and had him hanging with him to train and watch. Kind of like what Floyd did for me. Mm-hmm. And and he like kind of handed him over to a great situation over at Mayweather Promotions, to where he, now he's fighting on pay-per-view. So, and AB had a whole lot to do with that. And Robert Easter Jr., like AB signs these guys and fines and signs these guys and doesn't take one penny out of the check. He just wants to see people succeed and, surpass him. He's not one of those guys who just want to see people do good and not pass him up. So he does a lot, man. And you don't get to see that. People don't highlight that, in the media. They, people love negativity. It sells a little faster than positivity.
Right. Obviously he's coming off a pretty long layoff. I mean, I think a lot of fighters, he's not the only one because of the pandemic and everything, has obviously put an extension on all these layoffs for these fighters. But his last fight was obviously against Manny Pacquiao. And he got a lot of attention like he always does before, during, and after the fight, but especially after the fight. What kind of conversation did you and like the rest of the team, or you, if you had like a private conversation with him, what was that conversation like following that Manny Pacquiao loss?
Okay. See, now at the Manny Pacquiao stage, I wasn't kind of like inside. I was outside looking in. Mm-hmm. I was staying in Vegas, and that's where I've been since 2007. And I think let me see. The talk that I had with him, I think he might have, right that night I went to the fight, of course, but that night, emotions are kind of high, and, people are, they could be depressed about their loss or whatever. And I was kind of getting that vibe. He wasn't in the best spirits,
right.
As we expected. But so I didn't really want to, because I tell the truth.
Right.
And so I didn't want to tell him the truth that night and, bring his spirit down even further than it was, because the truth, it seemed like the truth might have hurt it, because he, you can't, all times you can't see how it looks from the outside. You can't watch your movie unless you got your eyes wide open. And even then, sometimes you can't. But he thought that the fight was closer than it was, and that he won some rounds that he didn't win, in my opinion.
Right. But
if I would have told him what I felt that night, I would have told him that he won about, I'm brutally honest, and, we have to fight if he get mad, I hope he'll be the same way with me, being brutally honest. But I had him winning about three rounds. Right. And, you can't win a fight that way, especially against a legend, a living legend like Manny Pacquiao. You got to beat him. You got to beat him up. And because, the judges love him, most likely. So that's what I would have told him. But, hopefully he got some real good friends around him and family that tell the truth too. Not everybody is gonna, and everybody knows boxing, that's around and that can honestly score, and they don't know how to be unbiased in the moments when around a loved one. So, but me, I'm gonna tell the truth, and I thought he won about 3 rounds, give or take 3.
How important do you think as a coach, and obviously being a part of a team, like, for example, like somebody like Adrian Broner, how important is for fighters to surround themselves with, people like you who can tell them the truth? Because obviously, as your profile grows, there's some people who kind of want to jump on the bandwagon and just to be a part of the ride. And they'll kind of tell you everything you want to hear, which can kind of backfire sometimes. But for, you're saying that you're able to talk to him and honestly, and really tell him the truth, whether he likes it or not. How important is it for fighters, professional fighters especially, to have people like that in their team?
I think it's vital to any progression that needs to be made, or because you have to be told the truth, man, and that's how you get better. If someone's, say you're in a gym and you're sparring, and So you sparred 10 rounds and you tell your guy that he won 8 of them and he really only won 2. He's going to take that same stuff that he was doing in the gym that he was doing in those 10 rounds, and he's going to take it into the ring, and the judges are only going to give him 2, most likely 2 out of 10. And how can you win like that? And then you're going to talk crazy to the judges and the commentators that's doing the post-fight interview, and it just it's going to look crazy. And you don't want to look crazy. You want to look like you know what you're doing. You want to look like you got a strong, smart, honest team behind you. And that goes with anything in life. That's, if you out here running the streets wild and you riding around with guns and you don't got no license, suspended license, just stupid stuff. If you don't have people around you telling you that that's a mistake and that's wrong, and instead of people telling you that it's right, you're not gonna get better at anything. So you have to have people around you to tell you the truth, and they need to know the truth first.
Obviously, like we mentioned earlier, he's fighting this Saturday, the 20th of February on Showtime from the Mohegan Sun Casino in the state of Connecticut. How's training camp been? I know you kind of touched on it here and there, but in terms of sparring, how he's been looking, especially the last 2-3 weeks, how's it overall been for his fight?
Oh, well, like I said, we started in October 21st. It was like the first day of training. So 4 months. It's a long training camp, but he had 2 years off. 2 years and a month it'll be come fight night, and so he needed more time, of course, to lose some weight, to shake the ring rust. And training camp has been going great, man. I've been working hard, injury free. I think he's been on supplements and healthy things for the body that he's never done before. So his body's probably feeling like younger than it was before he even left the ring last versus Manny Pacquiao. He definitely looks it and he's acting like it. Sparring's been great. I don't see any ring rust at all. He probably will look. Well, I don't want to talk too crazy, but he'll look just as sharp as he did versus Manny or some of his more sharper fights before that. Right. And that's, to me, that's insane, because that was the goal, though. I like challenges. I like to do crazy stuff that people wouldn't even think that you could pull off. And I think people will agree that he's going to look sharper than he did before he left. And that's great to me.
Gerald, I know that in his last couple of fights, he kind of got criticism for not throwing a lot of punches. Is that something that you've looked at?
Oh, for sure. That's without saying, man. And I'm sure he's heard it way more times than we have. And with the drill, like that. Me and Floyd, the drill that Roger used to have me and Floyd doing, the mid drill, and I do it, and I make him throw just as many punches that Roger made us throw, even more, and I added way more components to it, and it's like you accidentally throw punches, when sparring and on the bag, you just and you walking through the grocery store shopping and you just throwing punches and you got to go catch the cart because you got yourself throwing punches. So I think that all the stuff that we talked about and we actually put into motion in the gym is gonna leak over into the fights, because it has been in the sparring. So just February 20th, man, is gonna be a great day, man. You get to see a new Adrian Broner, man, a better version of himself, man. He's definitely letting his hands go, and I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it because, to be honest, you don't know. You honestly don't know. He probably knows, how he's going to let his hands go, but nobody else knows until that night. So I can't wait to see it. It's kind of like waiting on the Christmas gift, man. I can't wait to open it. I'm excited.
After this fight, Gerald, will we see him down at 135?
I don't know how fast, but I have high hopes for that. And he told me that it's very possible. Very possible. I don't know about right after this one, because I think he got plans on getting a title at 140. So he may stay here for, a few. And then we'll think about what's next after he grabbed the title.
How many times would you like to see him fight this year?
I would like to see him fight February 20th. March. May. I would like to see 4, but that'll be a stretch. That'll be like, 1999.
That's a lot for boxing right now. That's a lot.
Yeah. It'll be like taking it back 20 plus years. But 4 would be high hopes. I like to dream high. So if I fall short of my dreams, it'll be 3.
I think that would be good, though. I think the AB, to keep him active, obviously he then can't go up and down in weight. So I think that would be good for him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he'll definitely do 3, but you never know. We might have 3 and then an exhibition, which will count for 4. So never know. I'm just keeping my hopes.
Right. Are we going to see the exhibition? Are we going to see the dream fight of Broner v. Mayweather?
Exhibition.
Man, I hope so, man. Fingers crossed, man. We're all brothers, man. Me and Floyd go back to 1995. We were on Olympic team in '96 together. I was an alternate. He was an Olympian. And that's where we got really tight at. But we're all like one big family, and sometimes families have like little squabbles or, whatever. But I think them making all that money together, that'll be a great thing. And I think it'll be based off of how if AB can get, 2 or 3 good looking performances and people start to really talk about it this year. Maybe we'll see it next year.
What would be your dream fight for him?
I think that would probably be the dream fight for me. But besides that, I got a lot, man. But I really want to see him get his Jesse Vargas rematch. If we can get Jesse back in there and come down to 40, I don't know if Jesse will be willing to come down to 40, but might have to do a catch weight again, something like that. But Jesse would be a good one. Manny, I think Manny's going to keep winning. I think a Manny rematch, after AB proves himself,
right.
Nothing too soon. I'm not, I'm realistic. Manny. And an exhibition see, Conor just lost. That kind of takes some of the shine off of that fight. But I always wanted to see AB fight Conor. Their personalities together. Man, that'll be a hell of a fight. An after fight, a pre-fight. It'll just be. It would have been crazy. But you gotta let some Conor get back in there and gain some of his momentum he lost back.
Does AB want? Does he want another shot at Vargas to kind of fix that draw that they had to try to get that W in his record?
Oh, we don't talk about Vargas. That was just one of those fights where I loved the fight. That was a perfect matchup to me. That was just perfect matchup. I've known Jesse since he was a kid. He used to train at the gym with me and Rogers and Floyd as well. And I'm like family with him and his pops too. But so I just like that fight, and I watched it. I was a fan, watching it at home, and of course cheering for AB. And I just seen he let half of the fight go without getting serious. And I just know what a 12-round fighter, a 12-round AB would look like instead of a 6-round AB.
Gerald, have you spoken about fighting Regis Prograis? I see that they've gone back and forth on social media.
No, not at all, man. I really don't like to get into when people start calling people out and hoping for fights, because a lot of it's it don't really make too much sense. Like, they're calling him out on while he's inactive and he don't have a streak, and he's not he wasn't on the right path as far as winning and letting his hands go and stuff like that. So I want to see if those same people be calling him out once he's, he gets on the right track and he starts letting his hands go. He starts putting people on their ass, And now if that happens, then I'll of course I'll think about the fights. But I don't like the Ivan Redkach and Regis. I don't really I don't give it too much attention. I don't give it too much mind because it just don't feel genuine to me. You know, I'm a real dude. It just don't feel really real to me. It seems like a kind of like not bullying, but it's just picking on somebody. You know.
From a nutritional standpoint, Gerald, do you still feel that AB should go down to 135 from a health and nutritional standpoint?
I'll see Friday when he steps on the scale. But right off the bat, I'll say 35 will be pushing it. Right. You know, it'll be not pushing it, but like pushing him. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is it may hurt, you know, to make it. And of course, you know, fighters hurt. You know, we do this shit, and you know, some people be real drained at the weigh-ins, and they get in the ring and they kick ass. But you know, I think 35 will be pushing it, but we'll see. You know how he looks at 40. You know, this coming weekend.
As of today, how's the weight cut? Is he on weight, or is he like maybe a pound or two away?
Gotta keep that confidential. He's looking good. He's sharp. He's healthy. He's eating salmon and asparagus for dinner, and he's drinking as much as he wants, and everything's going good right now, man. It's perfect.
So everything's on schedule.
Keeping him away from that prison spread.
Yeah, man. I keep telling him, man, you're at home. You're not in jail, man. Eat like you have a chef. Yeah, we got a great chef, man. Shout out to him, man. Elliot Buckley, man. He's doing his thing. He cooks delicious food for AB, man. And me too when I need it. I'm vegan, but he looks out and the food is delicious, man, and healthy as well. But yeah, telling me you got a chef, man. Quit just digging in the cabinet and just grabbing pickles and tuna and corn and just throwing stuff together, man. It's disgusting. That stuff you eat, you know, when you have nothing, when you have to eat that. You know?
Right. To scrape by, right. So as we mentioned, he's fighting this coming Saturday on Showtime. The opponent is Giovanni Santiago, who's actually making his United States debut over here in America. You as a coach for AB and all these different aspects of his camp. What do you know about Santiago?
Well, of course I watched his style. I don't really know too much about him. Like you said, it's his American debut coming up. So, you know, we ain't really had a chance. He's under the radar, you know, before we got the opponent name. But I watched him. He's durable. He's rugged. He's coming to win. He's hungry. He has a 0. I know. I'm sure he wants to keep it, but can't say too much about him because it may give up strategy for a game plan. But yeah, he's going to be a tough cookie, and it's going to be fun to solve him.
What's your opinion on like because obviously AB is the draw here in this fight. He's the bigger name. You know, I don't think it's a lie to say that people are going to tune in to see AB for this fight. He's the marquee name in this matchup, like a lot of his fights. And Santiago, like you said, you know, there's not too much info on him. He's making his stateside debut. So he's kind of an unknown. We just before you came on here with us, we talked about Josh Warrington over here in England or London this past weekend on, I believe, the zone fight. He just suffered his first professional loss against Mauricio Lara, which was a surprise, you know. And Warrington was the A side; he was the bigger name, you know. That they kind of looked at him like as a tune-up to get back in the rhythm and stuff like that. You know, how do you keep somebody like AB or for example, or just a fighter in general, from thinking like that and keeping that mentality and saying, oh yeah, I'm way better than this guy. I can just run right past him. Like, how do you keep a fighter in line to look at every opponent the same?
Well, for me, I just, what I do is I'll show them an example of how the worst can beat the best. And it'll be like let's say the Nuggets when they weren't doing good, the Denver Nuggets when they weren't doing good, and they could beat the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron. Not this year's
Jamal Murray almost beat him, man. Jamal Murray almost beat them. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a perfect example. Like you can have the worst record, worst team, as they say, in any sport, and they can get the win. And then a lot of that is from the other team, the better team, feeling too cocky, not preparing. They got a line of girls in the hallway the night before the game, and they just really, Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas. You could just overlook and just think everything's cool, and you cannot do that. That's a no-no, because and my saying is the best, the worst can beat the best. And if you keep that in mind, but we train for as if he's gonna fight you name him. We trained as if he was going to fight Errol, Right. So we're ready for whatever. We didn't train for like a soft touch or anything like that. We're not like playing it safe or okay. No, he's been working his ass off. He hasn't missed a day. He probably missed like 1 or 2 days in 4 months, and that's just to rest and recover. We take Sundays off, but every now and then you'd be like, I'm gonna take this day off,
Right.
I'm extra sore, I'm gonna get a massage. So, but we missed but 1 or 2 days in 4 months besides our Sundays. So we're in tip top shape, man. He's got thousands of punches in his book bag.
Gerald, does it help that you've kind of got Robert Easter Jr. also on the card and Rashid Warren, so kind of the whole team's fighting at the same time?
Yeah, man, they're like really like tight like brothers, and this is not like the saying how people hang and they just say tight like brothers. No, they're really like brothers, and and they were like raised like in the same household. How tight they are and how much they listen to each other and they vibe off each other's energy. And today, if you'd have been to the gym today, you'd been like, wow, that's crazy. Like, wow, somebody's seriously on the bag working on strategy. They peek over and see something and say, come on, Rashid, come on, Robert, come on, AB, do this, get your hand up, do this, elbows in. And it's a crazy energy. And, if one person was training, by themselves in camp, they wouldn't have that energy to feed off of. So to have 3 that, are going to fight on the same night is just crazy, man. And I just been telling them that all 3 of them are going to climb the turnbuckle. So we're trying to get 3 stoppages here Saturday.
Are AB and, for example, Robert Easter Jr. fights at 135 at lightweight, and Adrian Broner has been kind of going back and forth between 140, 135, 147. He can kind of show that he can kind of go to any 3 of those weights at the moment. Are AB and Easter, are they kind of like the Klitschko brothers where they won't fight each other if it came to it?
Yeah, they're definitely like they're even worse than the Klitschko brothers. I think the Klitschkos will fight before Bunny and AB fight each other. Yeah.
So fans and boxing fans and media can just throw that out the window to ever expect that type of fight between Easter and AB.
Yeah, that's like they're tight, man. They're super tight, man. Tighter than brothers, like literally. They're tight. That'll never happen. They'll man, the love that they have for each other is literally like big brother, baby brother.
Right. And then obviously my co-host Mike mentioned Robert Easter Jr. is also on card. He's going up against Ryan Martin. Is this Ryan Blue Chip Martin?
Yes, it is.
Right? Yeah. Tom Loeffler's he was with Tom, I think he is with Tom Loeffler. What do you think about that matchup? Because I mean, Martin has some pretty good stock in his arsenal. I mean, that seems like a pretty intriguing matchup, at least from our perspective. What do you think as being a part of the team?
Yeah, I think that's a great matchup, man. I used to train Jamel Herring. He's about to go. He's world champion. He's about to go over and fight Frampton in his backyard. And I had we were in Cincinnati, and Ryan came down to help Jamel get ready for a car. Oh, well, AB won his 4-4 title. They fought on Showtime, and he helped Jamel get ready for that fight. And, but I've been around Ryan. I used to work with 50 Cent, and Ryan had I believe he was he signed to 50, or he was around a lot. Right around that time. And so Ryan's he's a good fighter, man. And that matchup is actually like I'm like can't wait to see it. You know, of course I'm Team Easter, but it's definitely going to be a great fight to watch. Like the fans should be pleased with that matchup, man. It's like perfect. It's like it's hard to even explain, man. Like I'm surprised that they're at this point in their career where they can match up right now.
Yeah, when I saw that that matchup was made, when we had talked about it off air, I thought that came out of nowhere. I was just like, oh wow, you know, because if you look at it, at least from our perspective, Robert Easter's still very dangerous at 135. You know, he even when he lost to Mikey Garcia, he was fighting well up until that point. It was a very entertaining matchup. And Ryan Martin, this is obviously I think this is the most significant opponent he's had up until this point. So either way, whoever wins, I know you're Team Easter, but whoever wins, it's a good name to have on the resume, if that makes sense.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying for sure. There's two good names going up against each other. You know, both on one loss, right? Both one loss. Yeah. It's a great matchup, man. They're both around the same height. It's a great, you know, same range, kind of like same styles. It's crazy, man. It's gonna be a good fight.
Absolutely. And then, like Mike mentioned, Warren is also on that card, 17-3 against Sharon Carter. What do you think about this matchup?
Nuke is that's his nickname. Nuke, we call him Nuke since he was a baby. Or Baby Pitt is his fight name. But Nuke is he's a special fighter, man. He's the only 3-time American Olympian in the sport of boxing. And that's insane to even accomplish that. And it's because of his skill level. And when he's on his A game, he's like, man, he's a beauty to watch, man. And he's on his A game. And so I think he's gonna there's gonna be some hands waves, and he's gonna climb up the turnbuckles, and he's gonna put on a great performance, and he'll be on TV real soon, man. What's
his ceiling, in your opinion?
Say again.
What's his ceiling? Like how high can he go?
You know, in those little smaller weight classes, it really depends on the weight classes. It's not really like the fighter to me these days. You know, back in the day, it was different. You know, right. Ricardo Lopez and Michael Carbajals and Paulie Ayala's. It was a little different back then. But these days, you know, all the attention is, you know, up. It ain't even, it's 30 now. It used to be 22 and 26, but it's like 30 and up now to me. And so I think it's on the division, but maybe somebody will step out and, you know, kind of be crazy like AB is, and then they'll draw some attention to the division, and they'll start getting some shine as a whole, you know. But I think the ceiling, not just for him, but for all fighters in those smaller divisions, is just going to be their mouthpieces.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. And then you mentioned earlier in our conversation, you were growing up, you were a big fan of the Mexican fighters, Julio Cesar Chavez, Ricardo Finito Lopez. Also this weekend is an all-Mexican clash between Miguel Berchelt and Oscar Valdez. You know, you as a fan, what do you think about that matchup?
I like see now Valdez is working with Canelo's trainer, right?
Right.
And I'm like more like old school. Like one of my favorite trainers is Nacho. So I like real fundamental trainers. I'm the same way, you know, on the black swaggy type of side.
Yeah.
But you know, I respect everything. But so I'm leaning towards wanting Berchelt to win. But I'm a Valdez and Canelo fan, and their trainer it was Reynoso, right?
Valdez, yeah.
Yeah.
Eddie Reynoso, yeah.
Right, yeah. I'm a fan of his as well. So I'm torn, man, but the matchup is going to be crazy. It's just it's unfortunate that it's same day as ours because I'm gonna have to watch it, not live. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great fight, but ours is going to be better, of course.
Do you think a fight like this goes the distance, Valdez and Berchelt?
No, I think somebody's gonna fade mentally and wave the white flag, and not like literally, but enough for the referee to step in.
Right.
I don't want to say who, but I think somebody's gonna fade mentally, and then it'll show physically.
Right. Absolutely. A lot of people have talked about this fight in terms of being a 50-50 fight, or at least it's going to, on paper, it should be, an entertaining matchup between two Mexican warriors like that. And both of them should bring out the best in each other when they both step inside that ring. In regards to that aspect, who can bring out the best in Adrian Broner? If you had the ideal opponent between 140 and 147, for example, who do you see? I would love that matchup. I think it'd be entertaining on both sides, and it would bring out the best in Adrian Broner.
You say from what weight classes?
Let's just say 140 to 147 for now.
47. Bring out the best AB. I would love to bring Ricky Hatton out.
Really?
The Ricky Hatton in his prime.
Yeah,
but, let me think of somebody like that. Somebody like that, man. Tough as nails. Who's like that right now? Around that, that's gonna sit right there, they're willing to bang with you no matter what you bring. They ain't scared of shit. I can't think of nobody right there around that division that fights like that. 47. Yeah, man. I actually I can't think of anyone that'll bring the best out of them, because I would want to see him sit right there in the middle of the ring in the telephone booth and just, like him and DeMarco did. But, DeMarco was the threat back then, and he wasn't scared of shit. So he was willing to sit right there with the can man and do that. So if there's anybody out there like that, I just can't think of it right now. Maybe, he's too small. Linares would be a good matchup. Mm-hmm. But someone like that style,
Right. If and Sean Porter, another Sean Porter rematch, I think that would be interesting. I mean, AB did knock him down towards the end and created some drama there. See
that matchup? Porter is awkward. He was a middleweight in the amateur, so he's like, that isn't ideal for me. He's literally. AB's already disadvantaged at 147 anyway. He went up from 35 all the way up there. That's 12 pounds, 2 divisions. And, to fight somebody who was 165, so that's a 35 going against a 168, which is actually 33 more pounds, above where he's supposed to be. So but the style, I get what you're saying. Stylistically, that would be, and then what happened in their fight, he didn't let his hands go until later on, and then he seen what happened if he was to let his hands go. So I get what you're saying, but he'll be too disadvantaged for I want things to be fair for the rest of his career,
Right. Say it again.
Teofimo Lopez at 140.
Yeah, that'd be a great fight. But I think Tio, and now I like Tio, but in that fight with Loma, man, I think when Loma let his hands go,
I agree.
He had AB situation too, earlier.
I agree. I know where you're going. I agree.
Yeah, he was gonna get Tio out of there fast. If he would have mashed on the gas from the beginning, I think he would have had Tio quitting, or they would have threw it. Maybe not. The dad's kind of tough mentally. Maybe not the towel, but I think the referee would have stepped in and stopped that fight. But I think Tio AB. Tio be coming up soon. I think he'll. I think once he tastes his AB power, it'll change up his fight plan. So I don't think it'll be like a Hatton, or I don't think it'll be that fight in the middle of the ring. I think it'll be a Tio, boxing in and out type of fight.
AB and Teofimo Lopez's dad at the press conference would be amazing.
Oh man. Yeah, it depends on AB. I want to see what this new AB is going to be like at press conferences. I don't know. I kind of feel like he's different. I kind of feel like he's different, man. I don't know what how's that's going to look outside the ring. I know what it looks like inside the ring, but I'm anticipating, man. I'm looking forward to this.
One person that popped into my head in regards to that question. And it's just because there's video of, I think when AB was out here in LA, AB's obviously fought quite a few guys trained by Robert Garcia. And I think they were outside one of the fighter hotels or something. And there was like media there with some cameras and stuff like that. And AB and Robert Garcia were kind of like hugging each other, talking to each other. And I remember AB telling Robert Garcia, he was just like, I'll beat Jose Ramirez's ass too.
Yeah. I remember that.
I've always remembered that. So I've always think like Jose Ramirez, Mexican fighter, he trained by Robert Garcia. He could, he usually produces pretty exciting fights.
Right.
I think at 140, him and Ramirez, assuming he beats like a Josh Taylor, I think that'd be a pretty exciting matchup.
I think it'd be.
Right. Yeah, win or lose versus Josh Taylor, I think that'll be an exciting fight with AB. Yeah, Ramirez got the goods, man. He's a great fighter. He's tough, smart, explosive, fast, powerful. He's great everywhere and in every category to me. And he may need a little more experience, but I think it'll be, like you said, I think that'll be a great fight. That's one of those fights that could potentially be like the sit in the middle of the ring type of fight. Those are the best fights for me. Like, man, I used to love fighting like that, man. I used to love fighting like that.
Before we finish up here, Gerald, for 2020, for as crazy a year as it was, obviously, especially since March, when this whole pandemic began, we still got quite a few fights and a lot of events than I think anybody expected in the boxing world. There was still a lot of fights that were put on, which was very surprising, but great for fans. What would you say out of that entire year was your fight of the year that stood out?
2020. Okay, that's 20. Porter Spence was 2019, I believe. Then Tank and Gamboa was also December 2019. I said 2020. 2020. Shoot, man, I'm a huge Canelo fan as well, man. It's like my favorite active fighter right now. But I think he had easy touches in 2020. But I'm trying to think which fight in 2020. What's yours?
We had Fury Wilder 2, Zepeda against Baranchek.
Yeah, it was a top-ranked ESPN fight.
Yeah. Mikey Garcia, Jesse Vargas.
Dillian White and the Russian
Lopez and Lomachenko.
Yeah, it would probably have to be that fight, man, for Undisputed. Yeah, it would have to be that fight. Yeah, because he shocked me. I hold Loma up real high. He's elite, man. He's a super special fighter, and I didn't see that coming. I knew Lopez could make it tough for him with his power and his youth, but I seen Loma being way too smart and getting a stoppage. I actually called a stoppage, but I didn't know he was injured, and I think it would be a different fight if they ever fight again. And, if I was in T.O.'s camp, I would tell him to stay away from the rematch right now.
Yeah, I would.
Let him get old. Let him get old, decline, and come back and see where the tables are level, because I think Loma still has the advantage to me.
Right.
But yeah, that was the best fight of 2020 for me. That was great, man. I talked about that for about a week straight. That was a good one.
Well, as we finish up here, Gerald, we definitely appreciate your time. We know you're over there in the East Coast. We're over here in the Los Angeles area of California, so we know it's late over there. I think it's after midnight, so we definitely appreciate your time, especially being fight week for AB.
Thanks for having me, brother. No problem, man. I'm packing up, getting all this stuff ready, man. We gotta get a good run in the morning, hit the gym, and then get on this little jet, man. I hate small planes, but we gotta do when the champ wants a private plane, we gotta get on.
No, we get it. And then if you have any social media or anything you got, like your own projects, go ahead. The floor is yours, and you can go ahead and plug it, man.
Oh, well, I'm on, I think I'm on everything, but it's probably GT the Great on everything. And on Instagram is GT the Great with underscores in between the words. So, yep, that'll be, I appreciate that, man. Thanks for having me. It was a great talk, man. This is a good one. Anytime y'all want to talk to me, I'm down, man, about anything.
Oh, we appreciate it. Yeah, we thought we were going to have to reschedule you for like a couple weeks out or something. Like, we get it. Especially when we get guests who are in fight week mode with their team and stuff like that. We understand it's not really a big deal. We know the business. But we appreciate that you found some time to jump on and then kind of give us an insight onto the whole AB training camp and the lead up obviously to this Saturday on Showtime, February 20th. And Mike, before we sign off here, go ahead and let our listeners know where they can find us.
We're at the Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter, and then obviously be sure to join in next week. We'll be reviewing 3 knockouts by Rashid Warren, Robert Easter Jr. and AB.
There it is.
Best case scenario.
So for our guest of the week, and Gerald GT Tucker, for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.